First, I want to say that Irene is being a superstar in the General Assembly, and I'm so proud of you and everything. And she is such a superstar because she's got such amazing parents who really go above and beyond and are just such wonderful people, and I'm so proud to know you all. And Grandmaster Choi, thank you for hosting us. I am very grateful. I come from a family of martial artists myself. My brother has spent his entire career in martial arts and started off with Taekwondo as well. So I feel like I'm kind of back home because I spent a lot of time in the karate studio with him as a kid. So I am Jenifer Boysko. I am running in this 12-person primary for the congressional seat, and the election is on June 18th. And Irene has been so kind to tell you all a lot about the work that I've done. I want to tell you about why I am so motivated to be in service, because most of y'all don't know me. My father, an Episcopal priest, and my mother, a young woman thinking that she met the man of her dreams, got married when my mom was only 19. She dropped out of college to get married to my dad, who had just gotten out of the seminary. And it wasn't a good marriage, and he was not good to her, and he was not good to us, even though he was a great social justice minister. Sometimes things are different than they are in public. And my mom finally decided that she had to leave, and she found herself not having her education and never having had a job, being required to care for me and my two brothers all by herself. And she got a job at a tiny little store, and at the end of the first month, after working full time for her, her boss looked at her and she said, "I'm sorry, Diane, we didn't make any money." So she gave her 2 sleeping bags as her salary.
Oh, geez.
I don't know how she put food on the table, but she did. We had dinner every night, and we had clean clothes to wear to school, but she really struggled. And then she got a minimum wage job at our local counseling center. And again, no time off, hourly work. So if she didn't work, and she paid a babysitter more than she made if I was sick, that was one of her choices. Or she leaves me home by myself with my 2 brothers, one of whom was a karate guy and who was always practicing on me. So it was difficult. And finally, her father looked down, and this has been a few years now, and said, "I'm sending you back to school so that you can take care of yourself and your children." And she became a registered nurse, and we were okay after that. She was able to care for us. And then she made it her priority that I got a higher education, a college education, so that I could care for myself and stand on my own 2 feet before I got married. And I did that. And now my husband and Glenn we just celebrated our 31st wedding anniversary just this past week. And thank you. And we have 2 daughters, Hannah and Sophie Claire, who are also out of college now. So we have broken that cycle. And I look back every day in the General Assembly, and I think back to all the millions of people who have had struggles like my mom did, and how we did. How she made very difficult choices to put us first, when she was all alone. She didn't have anyone else around. We had no family around us. And I keep that in mind, especially in our community up here, where we have a large immigration population, where we have people working 2 and 3 jobs, where we have families who are struggling every single day to make ends meet. And so that's where I focused a lot of my work, has been on economic opportunity for everyone and bringing people to the table who often get left out. And so when I work with organizations, I make sure that I'm letting them come and speak before the General Assembly to talk about what their challenges are. And that has helped me get some very important legislation passed. I was the chief patron of the DREAM Act in Virginia that gives higher education opportunity for our students and in-state tuition. And as you heard Delegate Shem say, that I was one of only 6 senators chosen to be a budget conferee this year. Typically, that is chosen by seniority, and I am not in anywhere close to being the most senior member. But people know that they can trust me, that I will negotiate fairly, and I will take into consideration the needs and the concerns of all of the people, because it's not just about me. I'm a public servant, I'm not a politician. And so as I look to this congressional race, I really thought long and hard, because I serve on 5 committees in the Senate. I'm the chair of the Transportation Committee. I'm on the Budget Committee. I have a lot of responsibility and a lot of opportunities to do good. But I spoke to folks like Congressman Don Beyer and Congresswoman Jenifer McClellan and others about the opportunities for doing better at the federal level. And they really encouraged me to get into the race, and so I did. And now here we are. The primary ends. The last day you can vote is on the 18th. But it's really an interesting time, because one, I've represented more people in the 10th district than anyone else. As the state senator, I represented Sterling and Leesburg and Ashburn, and that's where the bulk of the population of this 10th district is. So people know me, they've worked with me, I've carried their legislation and helped them with their constituent services and casework. And many of them have voted for me multiple times. This is my 10th race in 11 years. And in my first 2 races, I was outspent 3-1, even though I was successful. And so as we're looking at this race, there are lots of good people. Many of them are my friends and people that I've worked with closely. But I feel really strongly that the spirit that I'm carrying of public service and getting things done and being able to negotiate and work across the aisle and be a good listener is something that's missing in Washington, D.C. And I want to make certain that, that I'm able to do that, to carry your voices to Washington, to help get things done, and to serve at a greater level. And so I feel like I shouldn't talk too long, because we've all taken this great Saturday out. But I just want to thank you all for the hard work. I know that a lot of you have already been volunteering for me, and that's so meaningful to know that you've got my back. But if there are things that you want to ask or things that you want to talk about, I'm happy to have a conversation. I think sometimes that's the best thing. So thank you. Yeah, let's do some Q&A.
Is there anyone with questions that we can ask right now? We can take a couple of questions if there are questions. Yes.
Yes. I saw in your pamphlet that you were combating climate change and preserving the environment. I think that's really important for this current society.
Speak up.
Climate change. He's concerned. He was saying that he felt that I was concerned with climate change.
I'm asking, what kind of policies do you have to dedicating to preserving our environment?
Thank you. What kind of policies do I get behind around preserving our environment? I have been the leader in pushing for the electrification of our transportation system. Carbon emissions are the greatest. Over half of them are made by cars and automobiles on our roads. So getting electric vehicles in our society is one big way. Secondly, I've been pushing for energy standards in our building codes, so that we're building houses that take less energy and are more efficient. That's the second thing. And then there's a big pipeline in Virginia called the Mountain Valley Pipeline, and I have been advocating against that for years. So I've joined court brief, I have written letters to our congressional members, I have spoken out on it. Those are 3 fast and easy things that I can think of, and I was very proud to support a Clean Economy Act in Virginia that's going to help us get to a renewable energy program in Virginia.
The Virginia Clean Economy Act puts Virginia on track to get to carbon neutral emissions by 2050.
Yeah.
And Senator Boysko was one of the early patrons and supporters of that bill.
Yeah.
And so that's like the most probably transformative bill that we've passed in the last 20 years in Virginia when it comes to making sure that we are thinking about just and renewable transitions for our entire energy grid. And she's been championing all of that for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, we should not be having 90-degree weather in May. I mean, I can remember when they used to announce that on the news, like, it's gonna be 90 degrees today. Well, you know, we have seen that it's happening, climate change is here, and it is a crisis. So thank you for the question, and I hope that you're gonna do something too, to try to help as well. Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone else have a question? Yes.
So in a similar vein, you say that you want to work towards an economy that works for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate on some of the things that you would be doing?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've also, besides being a budget conferee, I've been put on a small subcommittee that's gonna look at our tax structure and reimagining a better tax structure for Virginia specifically this summer. I think that it's antiquated and it's old-fashioned, especially people who own homes in our localities. That's the only way that our local governments have the access to really get money in. I also was the chief patron of a bill that eliminated our grocery tax and diapers and menstrual products because, you know, everybody has to buy those. And so for the people who are struggling the most, I really believe paid family and medical leave, looking at our Social Security and Medicare systems that are really at a crisis right now are really what's on my mind. I can also tell you around our healthcare system, I have two daughters. One of them was born 2 months early because I had one of those horrible pregnancy-related issues. And she was in the neonatal intensive care unit for 6 weeks. Every single week, I got a letter from my insurance company telling me that it was $70,000. And then they were not sure whether or not they were going to let her stay in the hospital, that she would have died if she had to come home. And the stress that caused was just immeasurable. Luckily, she's now 26 and she's healthy and she's engaged to get married. But that, you know, our healthcare system is broken as well. Even though we passed the Affordable Care Act, I think we need to do better. With, you know, the cost of prescriptions and just, you know, the basic dignity of human beings being able to take care of themselves every day. So those are some of the things that I think are important. Yeah. Does anybody else have a question?
Maybe we can take one more.
Yes.
So as a student, my education is like a priority. So I'm asking like, what issues you see with our education? Like, what would you do to fix it?
Well, thank you. What would we do to fix it? So as a budget conferee, we passed billions of dollars in K-12 education, and we put record numbers of money into Pell Grants and other ways of financial aid at the state level. I believe that education is something essential, and if we do not have a well-educated population, then we're really going to be in trouble. So because our senior citizens, right, the baby boomers are all retiring, and we need people to come up, be able to take those jobs. So in the General Assembly this year, I serve as the chair of the Health Professions Subcommittee, and we focused specifically on incentives that can get people to go to study health professions so that we have people to come in and work in other parts of the state in those areas. So incentivizing people to go into fields that are really high need, having a strong apprenticeship program for people who perhaps don't want to go to college, making sure that school is affordable. President Biden just announced a huge college affordability funding stream that's going to help people, including folks who are, again, asked to go study in certain areas where there's a lack of services in those areas. And as we move forward, if we don't have a highly educated population, then this country is in big trouble. And so whatever we can do to make school affordable for people and give them options that meet their needs, I think that's really important. My daughters who are in their late 20s, everybody that they know has massive student loans that their parents and they are responsible for, and they're stuck in their parents' basements because they can't afford to go out and live on their own. That's a real problem, I think. So that's something that I care about a lot too.
Well, thank you all so much for those questions.
Oh, Patty had a question.
Yeah, I have a question. I personally have witnessed how hard you have stood for working families in the General Assembly. As you're vying for international issues. What is your position on a ceasefire in Gaza?
I support a ceasefire in Gaza. Thank you. When my daughter, last October, I mean, I was horrified, like we all were on October 7th, right? The victim of the attack, of the terrorist attack. And then within a few weeks, I started, my daughter, who has a lot of friends who are, have Palestinian loved ones, was telling her that they had 30, 40, 50 members of their families who had died. And most of them are children and moms. So I very boldly came out very early and said, we need a diplomatic solution. We are not doing enough to try to solve this problem with words. I do not think that in the long run, this effort to, engage in a war is going to be in the best interest of anybody, because the people who are left are going to be mighty angry. We need a diplomatic solution. And so I've been very brave in that. And I'm one of a few people there, of the folks who are considered of really the most viable candidates. I'm the only one who has made that statement very clearly and very boldly. So, thank you.
Before we wrap up here, I just want to give a couple of quick recognition to all of them. A few here. One is to Sue Lee. Hi, Sue. Thank you. Sue is and for the folks here who speak Korean will know, I call her our team down name because she ran a whole team of interns and volunteers to help me win my primary, but she's also doing the same for Senator Boysko in mobilizing folks to talk to Korean American voters and make sure that they know that there's a primary. I think the biggest uphill battle for us is letting people know there is a primary coming up, because I don't know that most folks are paying attention. And so big thanks to Sue for all of her work. We've also got the Korean American Foundation